So, when I messaged him, I just was like, hey, you left something behind. It's a baby. It's in my uterus. Anyway.
Why do you parent like that?
Hello, welcome back to Why Do You Parent Like That, the podcast with one set of questions and 1,000,000 ways to parent. My name's Abby Harrison and I am the host and creator of this podcast, and it is a delight to have you here. You have me back this week. No weird automated intro for you guys. I am on the up from norovirus, which, let me tell you, do not recommend. If you can avoid it, I would try to do that. I have a little bit of housekeeping for the podcast, and it is that I am changing the upload schedule soon. I'm giving you lots of warning, so you don't need to panic when it happens, but there will be a change in upload schedule. Basically, I'm looking ahead to when I have to go back to work, and there is just no way that I'm going to be able to do a full-time job, parent 2 kids, and release podcast episodes weekly when I'm back at work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to release 20 episodes and call that season 1. This week is episode 16, so you have 4 more episodes of season 1, and then I'm going to take a month's break from releasing episodes. During that month, I've got lots of podcast stuff that I'm still going to do, so I'm working on a mini-series. I'm also going to try and record as many episodes as I can and get as many as I can edited, and so then when I come back from that break and we launch into season 2, I'll be releasing episodes fortnightly, not weekly. And I know that this is a big change, and I hope it doesn't discourage anyone from being a listener of the pod, but I need to think about ways to keep this sustainable for me. And my therapist has been talking to me about this thing called boundaries, so I don't do another thing called burnout, which is cool and fun, so I'm going to listen to her advice. So TLDR, there will be 4 more weeks of weekly releases, and then that will be the end of season 1. I will take a month's break, and then I will come back for season 2, rested and refreshed, with lots and lots of content for you guys, and I will be releasing fortnightly. During the break from having episodes in your feeds, I will still be over on Instagram, I will still be on Substack, I'll still be on TikTok, so I won't be gone, but there won't be any podcast episodes in the feed for that month. But obviously make sure you're still subscribed to the pod so you can see when I am back. I hope that's okay with you guys. I am learning how to find balance, and this is me doing that in action and practicing what I preach of not burning yourself out for the sake of other people. And I want to keep doing the podcast. I don't want to give it up, and so I need to find a way to make it all work. So we'll see how that goes, and you guys are just going to have to bear with me and give me a bit of grace, because obviously I haven't worked as a parent of 2 yet, so we're just going to have to figure out what that looks like. Follow me on all the things, on Instagram, TikTok, Substack. Share this episode with a friend. Make sure you're following, rate, review, all the things. Today, I had the amazing Abby Bridgeman, aka The Early Days New Zealand, on the podcast, and she is just a delight. I am very, very lucky that I get to call her a friend, and it is very funny listening back to this episode because we definitely forget that we are recording, and it's definitely just us having a conversation. The truth bombs all come out, and I'm really grateful because Abby was equally as vulnerable back to me, so you can enjoy the double Abby chaos today. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend or share it to social media. And yeah, I think that's everything from me. Love you. Say it back.
Why do you parent like that?
Today's guest is someone who has been many things in her life. NICU nurse, operating theatre RN, solo mum, accidental influencer, and now a straight-talking, big-hearted source of support for thousands of Kiwi parents just trying to figure it out. Abby Bridgeman, aka The Early Days New Zealand, knows the clinical side of birth and babies inside out. She specialised in obstetrics and cardiothoracics, big word, before burning out in her late 20s and taking a break from nursing, only to find herself, in her own words, hella knocked up, and beginning a new chapter as a solo mum. What followed was a crash course in postpartum reality, PND, solo parenting, and watching far too many experts and influencers paint a version of motherhood that looked nothing like her lived experience. So, about 14 months postpartum, Abby decided to do something about it. She started the Early Days NZ, a space that blends realism with evidence-based care and a bit of dry humour for good measure. Her content is part education, part solidarity cry, part eye roll at the industry, and deeply rooted in supporting whānau in a way that actually makes sense. I was first introduced to Abby's work by Sophie Moskowitz from Imperfect Parents, who thought I'd be interested in having her on the podcast. And she was right. But what I didn't expect was to make a new friend I now message every single day. Abby's become someone I can instantly share my deepest, darkest secrets with. And honestly, she's one of the best things to come out of this podcast. Abby, my love, welcome to the pod.
Oh my God, you can't do me like that, jeepers.
Of course I can. Of course I can. It's the best. I can invite friends onto my podcast and then shower them with compliments in a way that is not culturally acceptable usually.
I think you've missed a natural calling in marketing because that was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. I would not survive in marketing.
Well, I'm also trying to be better at accepting compliments because I want to turtle when people say nice things about me, but that was really nice. Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here. If people have not met you before on the internet or otherwise, do you want to give a very short rundown of who you are and what you do?
Well, as I said, I'm Abby Bridgeman. I am a solo mum. I'm in my early 30s. I grew up in Taranaki, and I remember when I was nursing in the Waikato, I would tell people kind of jokingly oh, I'm a Naki girl, and they would be like, that makes sense. And I was like,
okay.
But yeah, so I grew up in Taranaki, rural dairy farming gal, and straight after school, I went to uni and did my nursing degree. And then got a new entry to practice position up at Waikato. And kind of got flung into operating theatres, and yeah, kind of loved the workplace scenarios and health, interesting. And so decided to take a change because also operating theatres is super specialised, and I was like, if I want to be able to do any other kind of nursing, I need to probably make that call and give something a go now, because otherwise you forget a lot of the other stuff that you learned in your degree. So I think I had been nursing for 3 years when I moved to NICU. And I have loved all of the nursing work that I've done. But yeah, healthcare is a hard place to work. And I ended up getting pretty burnt out, came home, spent a year pretty much moping around, and then just decided to work in a cafe for a while and applied for a nursing job here and got accepted. And then I was like, oh dear, there's a little embryo-sized spinner in the works here. And that was Maggie. And yeah, now I'm a mum. Yeah, solo parenting, postnatal depression, all of that fun stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess the reason why we've come across each other is because I just got to a point where very strong justice complex, I guess, and got so
Can't relate. Sorry. Don't understand that feeling at all.
And I just saw so many really unrealistic portrayals of parenthood on social media and really bad advice. And really I think the thing that bothered me the most was people positioning themselves as experts and being like, if you need to do this, and if you don't, you will be irretrievably harming your child or your relationship with your child, and this, that, and the other thing, with zero nuance. And obviously we are consuming so much social media, and I was just like, this is so toxic. I know it had a huge impact on me. It was having impacts on my friends, and I was just like, I literally cannot stand this. And that's kind of how the early days started. Basically me getting a bee in my bonnet and not being able to shut up about it.
That's how all the best projects start.
But we've talked about this, how it's if you work in education and healthcare, and then you kind of are aware of the issues and complexities, well, you think you are, and then you actually have a child, and then you're like, my giddy aunt, this is crazy. And then you see all this stuff on social media, and we've talked about how it's the healthcare education professional parenthood pipeline to having a social media presence, which is ridiculous. But here I am. That's me.
Yeah, I love it. Amazing. So let's get right into it, eh? Let's kick right into the questions. Tell me about your journey to becoming a parent.
And in one word, it was surprising. But
Very surprising.
Very surprising. I mean, not surprising in terms of knowing how children get here. But yeah, at the time when I became a parent, and the context in which I, became pregnant was not the plan. But I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be a mum, like very sort of, I guess, like maternal. My friends used to joke that it was a miracle I made it out of high school without a teen pregnancy. Because I had my first nieces when I was like year 11, fifth form, whatever you say these days, just like besotted, obsessed, still obsessed with them to this day. And they're like 14 and 15 now. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a mum. And yeah, it just so happened that when I got pregnant, it was with someone who had already left the country finishing their OE. And
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. But it was like 2021, they were getting repatriated back to where they'd been trying to get back, like throughout all the COVID lockdowns. No, 2020, I was pregnant rather. And like, obviously that was like nigh on impossible at that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, he finally got on a plane, and he like messaged me, and he's like, I've got on. I was like, yay, like congratulations. And then a week later I was like, oh dear,
I've got something to tell you.
Most awkward Instagram message DM of my life.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. How long did it take you to craft it?
Some time. And like, I mean, I always knew that I wanted to have a child, but it was extremely far from ideal, the circumstances. And so I really took time. I spoke to a few close friends, and I think I probably waited like 3 or 4 weeks until I even told a family member, because my sort of reasoning behind that was I had to be really certain in the decision I was making myself. I knew realistically that I would be solo parenting. Like, I mean, at that time, even if he'd wanted to move back and be together and parent the baby together, he couldn't have, because you couldn't come back into the country unless you were a resident or a citizen at that time. So he actually, I don't think he could physically get into the country for like 18 months after Maggie was born because of the travel restrictions. But yeah, so I had to be really certain in myself that this was a decision I wanted to make, because I'm very pro-choice as well. And as an operating theatre nurse, I actually worked in the provision of surgical terminations. And so it wasn't off the table. I had to make a big decision, and I have a very loving but opinionated family. And so I wanted to be certain in my choice before I brought that to them. I think I talked to my twin and his wife first, and my sister-in-law came with me to a dating scan. And like, because I'm a twin, I was like, it's just one A. Like, it's just one A.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think I was like 8 weeks, because I realized I was pregnant at like 3 and a bit weeks pregnant.
So good.
I just knew. Like, we've all taken like little pregnancy tests before, but I was just like one day late, and I was just like, I'm pregnant. And my flatmate at the time was like, nah, surely not. And I was like, nah, I reckon I am. And like, ding, 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 those lines came up straight away. So yeah, and then I really took my time, had the dating scan, and then spoke to like my parents and the rest of my family. And yeah, so it was a really big decision and a big journey. But yeah, I obviously made the decision, and despite its many, many challenges, I would never ever take it back. It's not the way I imagined entering parenthood.
No.
But it's my reality, and it's a hard but beautiful reality. I just wouldn't change my little Mags for the world.
Yeah, she's so cute. She's a gorgeous one. And so then what was the experience of going through like pregnancy, birth, postpartum? What was that like in general? But then also, I mean, I know you've got nothing to compare it to, so I'm going to keep on saying as a solo parent, but like that's just your experience as a parent. But just what was the experience like?
Well, one thing that bothered me was, because I obviously wasn't in a relationship, everyone was like obsessed with like who the father was, and like I think people assumed it was from a one night stand, which I mean, doesn't matter if it was, but it wasn't, but we just always knew that he wasn't going to be in the country long term. So it was never going to be a serious number. Yeah. But yeah, people were like super obsessed with it. So I didn't like, I mean,
people like close friends, or was this like acquaintances?
Oh yeah, like my friends were like, was it, knowing who he is? They're like, I'm like, yeah. But But yeah, I guess like anyone that I told, because everyone knew that I wasn't in a relationship. I don't know. It was just like that was the first question rather than how are you? Congratulations.
Weird. You're like, do you want a full list of my sexual partners? Is that what you're asking for right now?
Yeah, I don't know. So that really bothered me, and that actually delayed me. I was just so over it being kind of all about him. Like, I was like, this is my first pregnancy. Like, this is my first time growing a human. And so that was kind of annoying. It's kind of neither here nor there now. But I was really lucky in that I actually really enjoyed pregnancy.
Cannot relate.
Really can't relate.
Cannot relate.
And, well, I mean, I'm one of 6 children. My mum's if she listens to this, I'm very sorry, Mum, but she was a champion breeder.
Yeah, good on her.
Amazing.
Made for it.
So I was made for it. I'm just a fertile myrtle over here.
Love that for you.
And that's another thing that I struggled with as well, because I know people, and I know so many people struggle with falling pregnant, and I felt bad for accidentally falling pregnant, which I know doesn't make sense. Like, and I know it's not my fault, but I understand that people hear about someone accidentally getting pregnant and feel gutted, angry, upset, like have complex feelings about that. So I definitely want to acknowledge that. Like, I know I always kind of tell it in a funny way, but it was a hard thing, and it's hard for people who are struggling to fall pregnant to hear about people accidentally falling pregnant.
It's just like a lot of complex feelings, I think, just around getting pregnant. I don't think I've like ever heard of a pregnancy where it's just like perfect, straightforward, everyone's happy. Like, I just don't know if that exists, because like the nature of pregnancy and bringing a kid into the world is complex.
I think like, and when you're growing up, you're like, I mean, for most little girls, it's like, one day I'm gonna have a baby, you know? And it just seems like a natural progression of life. And then you're getting closer to it, or you get to a stage where you're trying not to have a baby, you know? And it's so hugely complex. But when we're little, it's like this blinker. One day I'm going to have a partner and a baby. Like, it's, But anyway, I like first trimester, I was just really tired and a bit nauseated, but I think the only times I actually I spewed before my dating scan, because I was like trying to drink all of the water like early in the morning, and then I was anxious, so I didn't eat. And we were in a cafe. I was in a cafe with my sister-in-law before the dating scan, and I was like trying to like neck all this water, and I was like, Mom, this isn't staying in here.
This is not going to stay in my body.
And I was like, this is literally the quintessential pregnancy experience right now.
It is. You just like, you got a little bit of the whole experience, you know? You like vomited once because you needed to do the vomit one time, you know?
Yeah, and then I did spew a few times, like when I got sick. Like, oh my God, it's outrageous, because now she spent basically the entire last year sick, just like first winter and ECE and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But like, man, did she just take away my immune system when I was pregnant. I was sick all the time. And I was working in a cafe, and the cafe owner is now one of my really close friends. She's like, you were so effing useless. Like, you were just always sick. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
But yeah, like relatively straightforward in terms of like, I guess until I think we had like the anatomy scan was all good, like got to 20 weeks, and like you couldn't tell. I've got a really long and my torso is really long, and you couldn't really tell I was pregnant until 7.5, 8 months. Like, it was
I'm the
just
same.
ridiculous. But when I got to, I think what happened was I had like a reduced I had cramps, like quite severe cramps at like 27, 28 weeks, and I was at work and I had to leave. Sorry, my friend Abby also.
Oh, great names all around.
Great names. Also my twin's wife.
No way.
Yes way.
Wow, Freud's got something to say about that for sure.
I know, and all my little nieces and stuff, because they've been together since we were at high school, and they used to call us, like, once we'd done our degrees and stuff, they called me Nurse Abby, Nurse Auntie Abby, and Teacher Auntie Abby.
Love that. And of course, you're a teacher and a nurse. That's hilarious.
I know. But yeah, so then I had that kind of a little bit of a scare, and I went to the hospital, and they put on a CTG, but it was like, I think my midwife said, like, I don't know heaps about this kind of bit, but it was like kind of one of the earliest. She said that she didn't think that they would be able to pick up contractions, but they could see some uterine activity. And I was just like, And because Taranaki only, it's like a skaboo, I think they can do some CPAP, like, but only 1 or 2 babies. So like 27, 28, 29 weekers, they might be able to hold on to 1 or 2 of them, but then you have to go to Waikato. And I was like, I do not want to be going to my old workplace right now.
Yeah, where I left because I was burnt out.
Though I like love all of the girls there, and the couple of guys that are there. So then at that stage, they did this thing where they test to see if there's like amniotic fluid, and then they were like, if it's over a certain level, then you are in a helicopter. And I was like, I really don't. And I was by myself. I was there by myself.
This is the thing. I keep thinking about this the whole time. Like, anytime I had quite tricky pregnancies with reduced fetal movement, and any time that I had to do that by myself, that Andrew couldn't come with me, I just felt so like isolated. And I was still able to message him and be like, I just can't imagine doing that by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like, I remember feeling like upset afterwards, but like at that time, I'm like, I go into kind of, you revert back into nurse mode. So I'm like really like probably very annoying, being like, also, what's happening with the CTG? What's happening with my, this, that, and the other thing? Asking all these like questions, and they're like, please just let us get on with it.
They're like, let us be your nurse. You are not your nurse.
Yeah, but like I did have like a really good experience with like the LMCs that I looked after me, and like the OBS registrars there. They were like, okay, so obviously you were having some sort of little niggles, but the swab bobby came back with okay levels, so that's good. Like you can go home. But they were like, but just come back anytime you want to, just come back. And I was like, thank you, that's what I need to hear. I will probably see you later. But then there were no more niggles, and like besides that, I never had any Braxton Hicks until I like went into labor. I had nothing like that. But when in that sort of time, they did my first ever fundal measurement. I think they normally do it around 28 weeks or something. And they were like, oh, your fundal measurement is a little bit smaller than we would expect. So I think after that, that was when I got referred for my first growth scan. And like that just kind of continued that I have a really long torso. So I don't really know, but I never had a very big bump at all.
I think that someone might correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that they're sort of discounting fundal measurements as like a reliable form of knowing how big or small baby is tracking. I think they're moving away from fundal measurements.
Yeah, but I do think they just use it as like a little bit of a screening tool. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
It's a tool to then send people off for the growth scans or further investigation or whatever.
Yes.
But
I think it's that thing of like a fundal measurement, if they do it from the start and continue to do it, then it's good because they can measure you against yourself. But it's like the like
but then if you've got
if
you've got multiple midwives like measuring you, they're not all measuring from the exact same spot. It's so very imperfect.
A lot of room for error.
Yeah. But the other thing was, upon reflection, I've been thinking about this a bit lately, like I definitely had antenatal anxiety, which like not surprising, but I couldn't put on weight. In fact, so I was like lighter at the end of my pregnancy than I was at the beginning, which is wild.
Yeah.
And so they were like looking at it, your fundal measurements like stagnant or slow, and then you are also like basically losing weight during your pregnancy. Yeah.
And if you're not vomiting or anything like that, that is like what's happening here.
And I think it was literally just stress, like that happens with me. I tend to lose weight when I'm stressed. And so what happened? I ended up having like multiple growth scans, and I ended up needing an iron infusion, and I ended up under the dietitians, and I was having to have, what is it called? Fortisip. I was meant to be having like a couple of Fortisips a day just to make sure that we were both like getting enough, and it's disgusting stuff and I don't like it. So yeah, like that was unideal. And then because of everyone's obsession with talking about pregnant people's bodies, that was really hard because people are being like, oh, you look so good, look at your cute little bump. Or I remember one time I went to a market to buy, like, it was just like a cute market at my friend's yoga studio, and someone was selling like little baby bloomers, and I was like, this is so cute, I'm going to get one. They said, oh, how far along are you? Like, when are you due? And I was like, oh, the end of February. And they're like, you don't look nearly far enough along. And that was like just when I'd been booked for my first growth scan. And I just like walked down and sat in my car and cried because you're so worried that like, that you're the reason or you're doing something wrong. And that is why the baby's potentially not growing. And so like she ended up being like 3.33 kilos, but for, you know, if you know how they do like the customized growth chart, she was still only on like the 15th centile for me, if that makes sense. So she was. Yeah,
Freddie was like 50th for the average and like 20th for me.
Yeah, actually, I think, she was below the 15th. So she was. And like her placenta looked junky, like it didn't look good.
Yes, I've never heard of this before, and I forgot that this happened with Freddie. But the midwife the placenta came out, and the midwife looked at it and was like, "I'm glad he came out today because that's not looking amazing." And I'm like, "That's so stressful."
Yeah, I know. But with Mags, so you can have what's it called? I think it's a velamentous cord insertion. Is that it? Someone will correct me, I'm sure.
Is that where
that's when it's implanted in the membranes, the cord, versus being in like the meaty part. And Maggie's wasn't that, but it was a border, like a marginal cord insertion. There's another name for it, but it was like on the edge, which can be dangerous. And like her cord was really, like I've seen some cords in my time in delivery suite theatre, but it was super like thin and short. Yeah, so like
I'm going to brag about Max's cord for a second because there's not much to brag about in Max's birth.
A thick curly number.
Cord, everyone was very impressed with Max's cord. Very impressed.
Nice placenta.
The placenta didn't come away, but the cord was impressive.
Well, there's a bit to unpack there, isn't it? But
we can't get into that.
We'll leave that for another day.
Well, that's a future podcast episode.
So, like, I mean, obviously the growth stuff and the solo parent and the anxiety stuff sounds really hard, but I actually look back on it and I loved being pregnant, which sounds weird, but I really loved being pregnant. I loved like the movements. I always felt really comfortable. Like I didn't get, like I got a few like, you know, of the shooting pains, but I went to term and I wanted her out, not because I physically wanted her out, but just because I was so excited to meet her.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing.
I wasn't like, get this baby out of me, like eviction notice served. I could have gone on longer, but I think I went into labor the early hours of the morning, 2 days after my due date. So
nice.
Yeah. 3-day labor, nice. Not so nice though.
Oh, I was going to say, what was the labor like? 3 days? Not great.
Yeah, just like a really long latent phase, but I went into labor like in the early hours of the Monday morning and I had her at like 10 p.m. on the Wednesday night, and I probably had about 2 to 3 hours of broken sleep in that time. I think. And
then they're like, here's your newborn, and you were like, yay. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. But I ended up going into I called my midwife because I was just so exhausted. I was so done. And I was like, please, let's meet up at the hospital. And this is early hours of Wednesday morning after starting on early hours of Monday morning. And I got in there and she's like, well, you're fully thinned in a face, but you're not dilated at all. Go home, sister. And I was like, oh. And I lived 30 minutes. It's like I moved back in with my parents for like a month before I had Mags, and then stayed with them for 2 months after she was born, and then went back out by myself. Just for a bit of extra help. But it was a half an hour drive back to my parents' rural home on the farm.
Were you driving yourself?
Absolutely effing not. So I had like my mum, my sister-in-laws, and my best friend were my birth posse.
Nice.
And like she did a stretch and sweep, and she could stretch me, and I just remember getting in the car to go back home, and because I would probably have like 3 or 4 contractions in that 30-minute drive, which were like agonizing, but you know, you're just like writhing
because you're in the car and you're like, I can't move.
I know, but I remember like getting out into the car park, hopping in the car, driving like 100 meters down the road, and then just like I vomited throughout the entire labor. Like I just spewed and spewed and spewed, but again, it wasn't like, it was just something that was happening, and it didn't really like bother me. But then so like 11 a.m. that day I went back and I was like, I need some pethidine or something. Like I need to have some medication because it's hurting so much that I can't rest, and you're telling me that I'm not dilated, which is fine, but I need to rest. But basically she gave it to me, and she's like, well, you're going to be here for ages now. And I was like, well, it is what it is. I'm not going home.
And you were like, I've been in labor for ages. Who cares?
yeah, like this child needs to leave now. But I don't know. I wonder whether it's because I worked in delivery suite theatre and I worked in NICU, and maybe it just felt like my safe place. But as soon as I got there, like they gave me the pethidine, like you should be able to have a rest, you should be able to sleep. But poof, we kicked off. We just went straight into active labour. They're like, she was like, I'll come back in like 3 or 4 hours to check on you. And by like 2 hours, and I was like, call the midwife. I was, because I was so tired, but man, I was like an absolute rager. And I thought, because I'm a real touchy-feely person, I thought I'd want like massage and cuddles, and I was like, don't me.
I'm the same. I feel so sorry for Andrew, because he's like, you know, we did all the antenatal classes and it was like, you know, you be there and you support your partner and like, here's in you, it's like all this lovely touch and here's all that. And I'm literally like, get into the smallest corner of our house and then turn around like, don't touch me, go away. And he just like, for Max's birth, he just knew to like pop his head around the corner and be like, are you okay? And I'd be like, no, go away.
How you going, Queen?
So proud of you. Keep it up, babe. See you soon.
Enjoy your corner. I just remember, like, when I was at home, I used the shower and I used the Swiss ball heaps, and I'd be like lying in bed trying to rest between contractions, and I'd feel one come in, they'd be like, give me the ball. Like, my long-suffering sisters-in-law and my bestie were like, you're unhinged, girl.
You are terrifying.
But yeah, I remember like I got really annoyed with one of the hospital midwives because she was like, well, we'll call her, but she'll come back when she can. And I was like, and luckily this lovely midwife was walking past and she walked in and she's like, what's going on? I was like, I need my midwife, I need some pain relief. Like, this is crazy. Like, once I went into active labor, it was just like contraction on top of contraction. Oh my Lord. And the midwife that heard me in the hallway and came in, she was like, let's get you some gas, shall we? And I was like, they were like, have a break between contractions. And I was just like, pry it out of my cold dead hands. Like,
you can fight me for it.
I was like, this is mine now. I literally said to them, I was like, this is mine now. Try and take it away. And then I'm just like sucking on the pethidine and just like vomiting and like yelling. And then I tried to get in the bath, and because the shower had been really good for me at home, and my poor midwife when she left from giving me the pethidine, had slipped on like a freshly mopped floor and fell onto her knee and split her knee open when she left from giving me the pethidine. And when I was like, I was like, I think I need to get in the water. And she was like, oh, because she knew she'd have to be like kneeling down.
Yeah.
And so she ran the bath, and I was in there for like 15 minutes. This is all from like midday to like 3 or 4 p.m. Oh, because when she came back, I was like gasping on the gas, and then she ruptured my waters, and oh my God, that feeling when she ruptured the waters and it's like Maggie just slammed down onto my cervix. It was yuck.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then I got into the bath and I lasted like 15 minutes in there. I was like, this isn't going to cut it. And I was like, I need an epidural. And they were like, because I was transitioning, and they were like, they're like, it's too late, Queen. Like, you're not.
Both times I asked for an epidural, I was in transition and didn't know. But both times I was like, I need an epidural.
But I was like, no. I was like, you will bring me an anaesthetist. And they're like, we'll need to do bloods. I was like, do the bloods. And they were like, you're not going to be able to sit still. And I was like, do you know how many labouring women, like advanced labour women, I've coached through sitting for a spinal for like a category 3 C-section? I was like, I know what I'm doing. You will bring the anaesthetist here, and they will put it in. And the anaesthetist came in.
On my back.
Yeah, and they said to like my support people, she's not going to be able to sit still. And I was like, put her in. And I did it because I knew exactly what to do. But I remember.
I also just like, don't underestimate how stubborn women can be.
100%.
Don't underestimate me.
And then I remember the anaesthetist being like, okay, it's all in. I'm like, why do I not feel any pain relief? And they were like, we're just putting the test dose in. My sister-in-law heard me. She was like way down the other hall. And I was like, what the fucking medicine? Because I was like losing it. I was just having contraction on top of contraction. And it worked beautifully. I had such a good epidural. I had immediate pain relief, and I could still move my legs. So it was like incredible.
The dream.
And the anaesthetist came back in like 15 minutes later to check that it was all going, and he walked in, and I was raging when he was like putting it in. And then he came back and I was like, hi, and he's like,
oh my gosh,
it's
hey,
working.
Friend. My friend, you're back.
Yeah, so I was like very, very close to fully dilated at that stage, but they were like, let's just give it, like, have a rest, like, have an hour or two. Because I wasn't feeling, I was literally living the dream at that point. But it ended up being
so
really
good.
crucial that I had that rest, because towards the end of that time, they were struggling to get a trace on Mags, and she ended up being, I'm really struggling with the trace, but she might be having some decelerations. And so they got the OBS reg to come in and place a fetal scalp electrode, or it might have been a midwife who did it. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But she was having like huge decelerations that she wasn't recovering
man.
from well.
Scary.
Yeah, so you're going from hearing like da 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 on the CTG to like da 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 da. So it's horrible to listen to. But so we went from having like my midwife and my support people to like 3
20 people
midwives,
in a room.
the
Yeah.
OBS, 2 or 3 people from the OBS team, and then a couple of people from the PEDS team came down just in
Yeah.
case she was flat.
Ready.
So it was like a very busy room. But for me, that was totally fine because I used to be part of the team that came in. So I knew exactly what to expect. I knew that we needed to get her out ASAP. They'd probably try an instrumental delivery and that we would zoom off to theatre if things weren't going well. But they were like, all right, we're going to set up for a ventouse because, you know, she's been moving down, but just try and push. And I got her pretty much all the way out while they were setting up for the ventouse delivery. The OBS reg picked up the episiotomy scissors and she's like, these are just for, I was like, I know what they're for. If you need to use them, just use them. But
you were like, just tell me about it.
I was like, I know what those are.
You were like, yes, informed consent, but don't talk to me about cutting my vagina.
The poor anaesthetist was like trying to like talk me through the epidural. I was like, I know, just give me the paper.
I love it.
But yeah, so luckily pushed her out in about 20 minutes because I'd had that break with the epidural. Like I don't think would have been able to do it if I didn't have that break. And then she came out and I had like a tiny tear. She was like a little bit quiet. So I think they clamped and took her over. They had her for like a minute and then she came back to me and all as well. Yeah. So, and I had like, I think they did active management of my placenta. So I had like a medication and they tugged her on out, stitched me up, took out the epidural. I walked to the shower, still in the birth room, and had a shower, and she like latched and fed really well, and all the rest of it.
Amazing.
Stayed. So I think she was born just after 11, and I went home by like lunchtime the next day because I just didn't want to stay.
Nice.
And like I was a NICU nurse, so I kind of like she was feeding well, and she wasn't having any airway issues, so I just went home.
Felt happy to go. Nice.
Yeah.
And then you can obviously direct. If you don't want to answer questions about Mags's dad, that's fine. But did you have any kind of communication with him after she was born? Like, what was that communication like?
Yeah, 100%. So, like, I mean, when I messaged him, I just was like, hey, you left something behind. But,
it's a baby.
It's a baby. It's in my uterus. Anyway, oh my God. But I was basically like, you obviously live like 10,000 kilometers away. You can be in or you can be out. Like, I've made this decision. And he was like, I'm in. And so, like, he's involved in her life as much as he can be, and he's been to visit her, and some of his family have been to visit her, and we'll hopefully go over there. And so I think I told him when I was in labour, but then I was like not on my phone, obviously.
And you were in labour, so not giving him updates.
I think I might have updated him like in the middle of things, and then I think I told him when I went to hospital, and then I sent him a picture like right after she was born, essentially, like as soon as like within an hour or so of her being born, and then like FaceTimed him the next day and blah blah blah. Yeah, nice. I'm lucky in that we've got like a very, obviously every co-parenting relationship, no matter what it is, comes with challenges, but I'm not having huge disagreements. Like I'm not going through courts. Like I'm very autonomous in the day-to-day parenting because it's like he lives in a different country, quite different culturally. He's like, well, you understand the context, you're doing the day-to-day parenting. And obviously I update him on stuff and like involve him in big decisions, but realistically, like I make all of the parenting decisions. Yeah.
And then my other question about that is her name. Did you run it by him or were you like, fuck no?
Yep, I did because I had 2. I had Maggie and Penelope that I really liked, and he was like, oh, Penelope, and I was like, oh, that's okay. Like Maggie is probably my top pick, so long as she like suits it when she comes out, and she has both of our last names.
Oh, nice.
So because I want...
That is so gracious of you, if I may
Well,
say so myself.
Well, particularly for her, I want her to be able to, like, she's she's South American, and I want her
Yeah.
to have a name that reflects that, and I want her to have the connection to, like, that very different culture and, like, her family and stuff. So, yeah, that it was for her more than anyone else that I made that decision, and he was, like, happy for me to lead that 100%. But yeah, so she's got both of our last names as well.
All right, we'll move on to the second question, which is, what does successful parenting mean or look like to you?
I reflect on this a lot, and actually one of the reasons it's kind of changed my perspective on it is because my friends just started this financial literacy for, like, women and young women, particularly kind of not-for-profit-y type thing, and I've been going through, like, her beta testing group, and one of the big things she talks about is, like, values-based financial kind of planning. So, like, what is important for you in terms of spending and earning your money, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, it kind of prompted me to apply that lens to my parenting. Like, what are my parenting values? And, like, basically, I could talk about it for days, but, like, what it boils down to, I think, is, like, responsive parenting is probably the best, like, word that encapsulates it. But responsive parenting, I think, looks different for every child, every family, every context. And responsive parenting looks different day to day because, like, if you were being, like, entirely responsive, you would burn yourself to the ground. Like, you would get so burnt out. So for me, responsive parenting looks like being responsive to Maggie's individual, like, needs and wants day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, to the best of my ability at that time, which looks very different day to day, depending on what we've had going on, her age and stage. Have I been sleeping? Like, what else is going on in our lives? So it's, I think, like, kind of optimum parenting, or however you want to word it. It's going to look different across families, across ages and stages. It's going to look different across children because your different children require different types of parenting.
Very different, yeah.
I talk to a lot of people, like, you can't out-parent temperament. Like, Max has been a stage 5 clinger. Actually, she was, like, a unicorn sleeper for the first 4 months of her life, and then, like, the wheels fell off. And I mean, she always liked to contact nap as a little baby as well, but yeah, like, she's a very sensitive girl, and she needed, like, contact sleeping and co-sleeping, and from, like, that 4-month kind of progression, whatever you want to call it. I was trying to move her into the cot at the same time. She maybe slept like an hour in that cot, and then it became, like, just a really big laundry hamper.
Yes, so good for putting clean clothes.
So good. Or dirty ones, or just, like, whatever's laying around the bedroom.
Whatever needs to not be on the floor anymore.
Yeah, it's just a dumpster fire. Anyway. And so, and then that was sort of when my postnatal depression really kicked off as well, like, around 4 months old. Like, it was, like, kind of 4th trimester was pretty golden for me because it was basically, like, her needs were met by the work that I used to do in NICU with, like, the growers and feeders, like, the later term babies. Like, it was feeding and chatting and, getting her to sleep and all that stuff. And it was really, like, simple. And and then I had, like, just postnatal depression and financial challenges and interpersonal challenges, and there was so much going on. And then she was sleeping through the night from 2 to 4 months, and then she just fucking stopped. And I was like, but I had no capacity to work on it. Like, I just had no capacity to make any changes. So she co-slept, and she was just, like, at the boob buffet all night. And she was just helping herself.
What a dream.
She was truly living her best life.
Yeah.
But I was, like, really unwell, probably from, like, 4 to 9 or 10 months. Like, there is a period of, like, 2 months where there's almost no pictures of her that I've taken because I just was so checked out. Like, I was still meeting her needs every day. But, I actually really appreciate that people have taken, like, videos and pictures of me, like, playing with her and stuff at that time because I didn't think I was doing anything like that, and I felt, I'll probably cry, I felt really bad at that time because I didn't think I was meeting her needs. Like, emotionally, I wasn't being the parent I wanted to be.
It's so hard when you're in it as well to, like, have that perspective that other
I
people...
had no perspective. Yeah.
No.
Because you're just
like,
so
I'm
like
just...
in your head all the time. But
You're right.
like,
We're like peers here.
I was meeting her needs, and like it's
Yeah,
really
of
lovely
course.
to look back at like the videos and see like I'm like honestly the bun in my head, like 'cause, you know, you can barely get out of bed and shower and look after yourself, so there would just
Yeah.
be like this bun that I reckon if I took out the bloody hair tie, it probably just would have stayed perfectly in
Stayed
place.
in
'Cause, you
place.
know, oh my god, so like I'm like in pajamas and just looking dreadful and stuff, but I'm playing with her and interacting with her, and you can't see that like when you're in it.
No. And all you can see is like, oh, but I didn't get dressed, and oh, but I haven't washed my hair. And it's like, but actually,
we dropped out of space and we didn't go to baby swimming groups or any, you know, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, and it was like, it was a dreadful time. And I had another like really bad bout from when she was like a couple of months off turning 2 until she like for maybe like 9 months. Like I was like blotto again. But like shout out to my psychologist.
Yeah, man.
She was awesome. I had a really bad experience with like the mental health nurse under the maternal mental health services. Like I was like, couldn't get out of bed. And she was like, here's the self-care sheet. If you've got 1 minute, you could brush your hair. If you've got 5 minutes, you could like, and I'm just like looking at this and I was like, I can barely form a coherent sentence.
And also like your suggestion here is like adding more to my plate that already feels too full for me to function. Like that's
100%.
really your suggestion here.
Yeah, and I can remember saying to her, like, I think I've got some, I was like, I think I need to be referred to a psychologist. Like I'm under maternal mental health. I was like, I really think that I need to be referred to a psychologist. I think there are like other things that have happened in my life that are probably like cropping up now
Coming
too.
up.
And she was like, oh, well, I'm your key support worker and I'm kind of here to talk to you about this stuff, and just like totally shut me down. And so I just never asked again. And then when I started feeling a bit better, but then also was still struggling, I ended up getting really like angry with some of the stuff that she was like saying and doing. So I like dumped her, I guess. And just to anyone who's listening, dump your healthcare professional if you feel like they're not meeting your needs. Like you have every right as a healthcare consumer. It's hard if you're in an area where your options are super limited. We're lucky to have telehealth options now, but not like you and I both worked in healthcare. We know that they're just like anyone. There are some people who are either like blatantly not good at their job or aren't the right fit for you. You know what I mean?
And
like,
I will advocate till the cows come home that counseling and therapy and psychology, you have to click with that person.
100%.
If you don't
shop
have
around.
that inherent click, it's just not going to work. Like shop around. And also people don't know this, but you can call those professionals and say, hey, can we just have a chat? I'd just like to get to know you to see if you're someone that I might be interested in
100%.
using your services. And that's like totally fine. And as someone who has provided therapeutic services as well, like I will never be offended if someone just decides I'm not for them and
Not
doesn't
the right
return.
fit.
That's
That's
not
what I
going to
mean.
hurt my feelings.
That's what I say on the early days too. I'm like, hey, if you're not gelling with what I'm saying or you're finding that it's stressing you out, please unfollow. And I don't mean that in like a get out of here, like by Felicia. I mean like if
look after yourself.
My approach is making you feel some kind of way and you need to step back, please do that. It's setting a healthy boundary for yourself.
Yeah.
And if the healthcare professional is offended by you giving constructive feedback, well, that's a big see ya moment as well. But
That's a big red flag.
Yeah. So when I actually ended up like complaining about her, I ended up getting referred to a psychologist, which has changed my life because then I got diagnosed with ADHD, which I feel like is no surprise to literally anyone who knows me. And it's like, oh, you know, the periods of anxiety and depression that I've been experiencing my whole life, it was like ADHD, maladaptive coping and burnout and all the rest. And like, I'm just trying to think, it was over a year after being diagnosed that I actually decided to try medication. But even when I was struggling post-diagnosis, I had the lens to view myself through, and I was able to be like, give yourself some grace. Like, you know that these are common things for people with ADHD to suffer through. And like, so when I had all these really bad bouts of PND, which probably complicated by ADHD as well.
Yeah.
Because I'd always like been like inadvertently, but I'd always been shamed for, why aren't you organized? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Why are you messy? Why are you forgetful? Blah, blah, blah. And so when things went downhill for me, I always felt like it was my fault because I'd got myself in this situation by being this like chaotic, messy kind of person. And if I'd just like been able to get my own shit together, I wouldn't be depressed or, you know, blah, blah, blah. But now if I'm
my
like
language, girl.
but now if I'm, and even prior to starting medication, if I was struggling, I'd be like, hey, yeah, of course you are. Like, this world is not set up for you, and you're parenting by yourself. You've got so much on your plate, and your brain is like, I don't know what to do. You know, like,
It's like, help me.
Yeah. And then the Ritalin comes in, and it's like, yay, my savior.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you noticed like a big difference being on Ritalin?
Oh, 100%. But, you know, there's always like with starting any new medication, there's fiddling around, and it's not it's certainly not like a cure-all, but it makes a huge difference for me. And I think the biggest thing is that it makes my head like a little bit quieter, and I am a little bit calmer because of that. I'm not constantly overstimulated by like, I mean, I still am, but to a much lesser degree. Yeah. So, yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, that was a very big tangent, but
no, I would like tangents are what make this podcast good. The tangents are the best part, so don't feel like
I knew I'd cry. So I mean, there we are.
Oh, we can tick that off. All right. Third question is, what is something about your parenting style that feels unique to you?
I just think that every parent and every family is so unique because we all have such different upbringings, even within like, you know, people experience different parenting from the same parents, you know, in the same house. We've all got different stories and experiences and mindsets that we bring into parenting. And so, yeah, I just think that, yeah, it's just my life and who I am is what makes my parenting unique.
What do you think it is about like your experiences or your context? Like what do you think informs your parenting from your life the most?
I think that because I like particularly like the ADHD stuff. So those traits that are like undesirable in like a child and a student and a partner and a worker, you end up feeling like a lot of guilt and shame about not being able to like meet people's expectations, and you're trying, but you're perceived as like lazy because you also sometimes just get like paralyzed by whatever's going on in your brain. And so I think that like I definitely fail at this sometimes, but I think that I'm really good at like understanding when Mags is being challenging, like that it's because she's experiencing a challenge herself, and it's just like the outward manifestation of whatever she's struggling with at that time. And like, don't get me wrong, like this morning was a disaster and I yelled and had to apologize and all the rest of it. But like, I think I'm always trying to be like, okay, you are being a right old a-hole right now, but like you're also 4 and we've had a big weekend and your sleeps haven't been so good. And I think like the most important thing for me is just like reminding myself and reminding her, like, girlfriend, you are such a good person. You're such a good little person. I'm so happy that I'm your mum and you're my girl and we are our little family with our unhinged cat. Like, you know, I believe that you are a wonderful person and that you are having a hard time right now. I like, don't get, like, I probably apologize to her every day, being like, oh, I'm sorry, mum, like, sounded grumpy, or I didn't stay calm and that wasn't helpful for you when you were feeling upset or angry or whatever. Like, I tell her all the time because I do yell and get frustrated. Like, this kind of parenting's super new to me. It's not, you know, I had a typical 90s kind of upbringing, but yeah, I say to her, I should never yell at you. An adult should never yell at a child. And I was like, and I'm sorry. I said to her, I'm working on it. I'm trying really hard to stay calm when I'm feeling frustrated. And but I make mistakes, but I promise you, I'm going to keep trying to like be able to support you better when you're having a hard time. And she's so sweet. Like, she'll like rub me on the shoulder and be like, yeah, we all make mistakes, eh, mum? She's so cute.
Bless her. Isn't it so, like, I just find that so rewarding when you hear back what you've been trying to instill in them. Like, even
Yeah.
watching Freddie, we're talking a lot to him about being brave because he's quite scared at swimming lessons, but we really want him to be water safe. And so we're really putting value on him staying in swimming lessons. And Max hates the car. And so we've been talking a lot about how like Max goes into the car and that's so brave, and Freddie goes to swimming lessons and that's so brave. And then times where Max is in the car and not screaming, Freddie will go, "Oh, you're being so brave, Max. Good job. You don't like the car and you're being so brave." And you're like, it's just so nice, like seeing your hard work pay off in real time in the way that they interact with the world and interact with other humans. You're like, I'm raising a good little human.
You're doing such a good job, girl.
Yeah, man, so are you.
But I mean, on the flip side, you also hear like their horrible, shitty tone when they're pissed off, and you're like, oh, that comes directly from like you're like hearing. You hear like your best bits and you hear your worst bits. But I mean, that's just parenting. We're imperfect people. Sorry, Sophie,
exactly.
for using your
Sophie, copyright.
Using your catchphrase here. You know,
it's a good one.
Like, and like the other night, like she particularly had a very challenging bedtime and challenged me. And yeah, like we lay in bed and I just like said to her, and I was like, you know that you are brave and kind, right? And she's like, yeah. I was like, and you know that you are smart and funny, right? And she's like, yeah. I was like, and you know that you make mistakes, hey? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, and it's all right to make mistakes, and everyone does, eh? She's like, yeah. So like, I just try and reinforce the idea that she's gonna mess up, I'm gonna mess up, but we still love each other. We're still good people.
Yeah.
Because I guess like that's something that I've had to work really hard on remembering, is that like when I make mistakes, I'm still a good person. I'm pretty sure, you know, most of the time.
Definitely.
And that I think that's one of like the most important things that I want to like instill in her. And I was told you about this. She's got really into Winnie the Pooh lately.
Oh, I love Winnie. I actually can't read Winnie the Pooh because I cry. I can't read it anymore.
So we've been watching like just if anyone's looking for like super nice movies or programs to watch with your kids, like the Winnie the Pooh on Disney is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But the one where Christopher Robin's trying to tell Pooh that he's going off to school, and Pooh's kind of not really listening and he doesn't know like what's going on. But Christopher Robin says something like, promise me you'll always remember you're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think. And like, I just like, Maggie's like, she's so funny because I always tell her like I'm a crier. And she like looks at me, she's like, are you feeling emotional, Mum? Because I'll be like sitting there with like tears in my eyes.
So beautiful. Yeah.
But she did it once. We were watching, there was a Bluey episode. I think it might have even been like Baby Race or something. And she's like, Mum. I looked at her and she's like, Mum, I'm emotional too. It's like, she had tears in her eyes. And I was like, oh, darling. And I was like, oh, you're so my daughter.
Miguel. I love that. That is so nice. Yeah, I think it's like
little darling.
Trying to remind myself that like I don't want my children to pin their inherent worth on productivity or like other
100%.
like anything other than just like who they are, you know? Like
I just want her to be happy and content.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that like that's also like unrealistic. Like I can't guarantee that she's always going to be happy, but I guess I just want her to always like to have like that self-worth and value herself, so that like even if she is having struggles, it's not because of how she feels about herself. You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of my struggles have come from that. And I mean, the world is a dumpster fire.
Yes, we need to find the good internally because externally it's a bit tricky.
Yeah. You know, and there's so many cliches, like I could cliche till the bloody cows come home. Like, you know, you can only control what you can control. And like, I mean, I'm not good at letting go of the things that I can't control, but I mean, maybe Maggie will be a bit better at it than I am.
Yeah. Nice. All right, let's move on to the fourth question, which is, what has your biggest, what the has that moment been since becoming a parent?
I mean, she's an unhinged queen. So, so many funny things. Like she started walking at 10 months and I was like,
stop, sit down.
100%. I was like, go back to being that little potato baby on the ground.
Lie down.
Yeah, I know. She took ages to like walk to roll and like do that kind of stuff. But then as soon as
she
was
crawl
like,
or did she kind of skip crawling?
She was like an inchworm. So I'll have to send you a video that you can post.
That's what
because
Max
it's
is trying to do at
hilarious.
the moment. She's inchworming along the ground.
It was so funny. But then once she like got up and I feel like as soon as she could like actually crawl, then she's pulled herself up and started cruising. And then like you've got an 11-month-old that's like climbed on top of your coffee table and is dancing. And I'm just like,
And the issue is like, no offense to any 11-month-olds listening, they're too dumb at that age.
they are
You're
so dumb.
You are too dumb to be able
But
to walk around. Like, you do not have enough brain sense to know what you're doing. Sit back
Oh
down.
my God. Yeah. And I mean, like, so many moments like that. Like, a couple of times lately, they'll just like wake up at 6 a.m. and you're asleep and they're just like in your ear, hey, mum, why can planes and helicopters not go into outer space but rocket ships can? And you're just like, right, I'm conscious. Okay, brains on, you know?
Hello, here I am.
Here I am.
Freddie's like really into skeletons at the moment. He keeps on
Oh
asking
my
me
God.
questions about skeletons. I don't know anything about biology, and also it's creepy as, my guy. Like,
Yeah.
find something cuter. I don't want to talk about skeletons. I don't want to talk about when our skin falls off. I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's no good.
We had a huge death phase last year because just after she turned 3, my gran died, and she was just like the quintessential gran, like just the best. And so, you know, talking about everyone being obsessed with like who the father was and all that sort of stuff, I was shiting my pants to go and tell my grandparents that I was pregnant, didn't have a partner. But I was 20 weeks when I told them. I had had my anatomy scan, and I went in and I saw them because you couldn't tell. Like, I saw them all the time, but they couldn't tell that I was pregnant. And I went down and I took a scan and I told them, and I said, I just wanted to come over because I wanted to tell you that I'm going to have a baby. And my gran, just like, bless her, just goes, Abby, that's wonderful news. And that was like the first thing that she said. Just the best. I love you so much. But it was like a huge thing for Maggie because Mags would have been like 3 and 1 month when Gran died really unexpectedly. And we spent heaps of time with her. And she just didn't get it. She just did not get it. And it was like, maybe it's always like she's gone on holiday again and she's gonna come back. I was like, so she's just gonna have like a really long sleep. And in the end, because I'm not like scared of death or bodies or anything, I was like, I'm gonna take her to see Gran. Like, I'd helped get her dressed that day, and then one of my sisters-in-law picked Mags up from preschool and brought her to the funeral home because we were having like some viewing hours there, and a couple of my nieces came in. It was like me, my sister-in-law, and my mum, a couple of my nieces, and Mags. We took her in and she like touched Gran's hand, and we were in there for like 20 minutes. We were all like chatting and all the rest of it. And we walked out. She looked up at me and she goes, hey, Mum. And I was like, yeah. She's like, Gran was really tired, eh? And I was like, my guy.
Not tired, dead.
Yeah. But then after we had like a very small funeral because Gran was really private and she didn't want like a big thing. But it was just like then all of their like progeny, all of their line, you know, their kids to their great grandkids, of which they had, you know, lots. And so everyone was just like devo. And when they like bring the casket in, my sister and I were beside ourselves. And Maggie's like looking at us and she goes, Mum? And I'm like, yeah, honey. And she's like, can you please be happy now? My poor little darling. But then after that, like, she started to get it, and it went to like really solid, like, they've died, we turned them into ashes, and then we buried them in the ground under the dirt. And you're like, oh my God, my girl, please stop. Like, you're right. But like, maybe a little bit more tact when we're talking about this in front of family would be pretty good.
Yeah, it's interesting having been a children's social worker, like coaching families through having those death conversations and like having to be like, euphemisms feel like they're going to be helpful, but they're just not. Like, kids just want to know the nitty gritty. They need to like try and make sense of it in their head. And so to say like, they've gone in the sky, and that's just really confusing. A kid's going to think they're in a rocket. Like,
preschool was really good. Like, they lent us some books that were helpful, and they like let her talk about death incessantly.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it was hard, but it just kind of is what it is, right? And I think she basically had to obsess over it until she understood it. And then, like, she'll still bring up death and talk about it now, but it's less of a, like, she compulsively talked about it and played about it and stuff until
I
she
think
got it.
like when you think about it, the idea of like having never thought of death as a concept in your life, in your head, that means life is happening forever. And so suddenly
Yeah.
you're faced with this idea that life ends. And while they're definitely probably not thinking of it as their own mortality, they're thinking about it as like their grandparents' mortality or their parents' mortality or like, you know, their dog's
Yeah.
mortality. And so that is a thing that you can understand them needing to ruminate and ruminate and ruminate on until
And
they've got
so
it kind of like squared
complex.
away. Yeah.
So complex
It's like a
for like
big,
little brains.
yes, a big shift
Yeah.
of understanding of what life is, and that this thing that they're enjoying so much and this, all these people who they love so much, like that has an end date. Like that's a very complex and big and scary realization to have. And so like it makes sense that kids all go through the death phase because that is a lot.
Yeah, 100%. With the death stuff, she has also learnt, like, because we live right by the Maunga, we're in Taranaki, and she's learnt that they erupt. And she's also, at the same time, learnt that meteors or asteroids or whatever killed all the dinosaurs. So she's worked through a big anxiety over the fact that, like, what would happen to, like, would we die if the mountain erupted or if asteroids came to Earth and killed humans like they did the dinosaurs? So we've, like, had to work through the fact that we have scientists that they didn't have back then, and they are monitoring everything, and they will let us know if we need to evacuate and all this stuff. Because she went over to my mum's house one day and she's like, Nanny, if the mountain erupts and you die, I'm really going to miss you.
Your mum was
and my
like,
mum was
thanks.
like, query about something Maggie said to me today.
A quick cue.
But she does say to me sometimes, she's like, Mummy, I'm really going to miss you when you die. And I'm like, oh, darling. I was like,
thanks,
so I sort of say to her, like, I'm not going to make any promises to her. You know, I was like, you know, we're going to look after our bodies and, you know, make safe choices. And hopefully I'm not going to die until you're like a really old lady. And I'm a super old lady, and we'll get to have like lots of like life and time together and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a wild ride.
Okay, last question. If you were listening to this podcast on the day you became a parent, what would you want yourself to hear?
I would want to hear go and get an ADHD assessment because it'll make your life a lot easier. But I guess more deeply, I would just like for myself and any other parent to hear that you should back yourself. You should trust in your instincts. You should block out noise and advice that you feel doesn't suit you and your family. You should feel really confident to set boundaries for yourself and for your baby. Yeah, I just think trust yourself, back yourself. Block shitty accounts that act like they're experts when they're totally underqualified to do so. Block great accounts if they don't sit well with you. Block everyone. Yeah. Move to the hills.
Block everyone.
Move to the
Run
hills.
away. Throw your phone in the ocean.
100%. No, but like, yeah, basically I think it's just remembering that you, I mean, this is again a cliche, but like you are the expert on your own baby because no one else knows them like you do. No one else knows you like you do. No one else knows your situation. People are always going to be missing pieces of the puzzle. Like, don't become a person that thinks they know better than everyone, but do back yourself, because I think I could have saved myself a lot of hardship and heartache, I guess, if I had just stuck to my guns. Like the stuff around, I knew that lots of babies need lots of contact and need to co-sleep. And I moved from being like a NICU nurse that was like on your back by yourself, like to learning about co-sleeping. Luckily came across the right pages when I was pregnant and knew that I didn't necessarily want to, but I was going to set up the space to be safe for co-sleeping just in case. And then as it turns out, over time, we ended up exclusively co-sleeping until she was like 9 or 10 months and we moved to a floor bed. Like she never slept in a crib. Yeah. And yeah, I just, at that time, I felt really confident about that. But then when the postnatal depression came in and everyone around me was sleep training and I never did any of those things, but I was sitting there stressing, doing what I knew was right, but feeling like I was doing something wrong. You know what I mean? Because I let the noise get into my head, even though I knew that I was doing the right thing. Because the noise is so loud. Like the parenting noise is so loud. And so I guess that's just like one example of it. Because that significantly contributed to my stress, along with like thinking that because I was like clearly very poor, that Maggie would never learn to eat if she didn't have a Trip Trap to sit in. And
The freaking Trip Trap community, guys. I'm so happy if you could afford a Trip Trap. That's amazing. I understand people save up to invest in them. I understand people love them. But if you don't have a Trip Trap, it's okay.
your baby can sit on your knee. You can make a comfortable space, a comfortable and safe space for your baby to sit and learn to eat. Trip Traps are not the be all and end all. Like, go off if you have one. Love that.
I know.
They do look really great.
Beautiful pieces. They're so beautiful.
And very functional as well, but totally inaccessible for the vast majority of people. And that was around the time when I was in the thick of my postnatal depression. And when I tell you that I deliberated and cried for like 3 weeks over a bloody high chair, which in the end I went and bought like $120 one from Baby Factory, and it was like, and I propped her up and made sure that she was all good, but like totally fine. She can eat, guys, without a Trip Trap. Just all of this noise. Like, if your bullshit radar is going off, listen to it. Like, back yourself. You know your situation. You know your baby. Just back yourself, set those boundaries, and that's probably one of the more important things that I would have liked to have concreted into my skull when I had
And
her.
then if for any fresh solo parents listening to this podcast, what do you want to say? What's the advice? What's the mantra? What's the words of wisdom? Other than
Just
a big hug, of course.
Oh my God, just that they're amazing. They're doing such a hard thing. And if it feels hard, I mean, this is for any parent, but particularly for someone who's like practically financially, emotionally, mentally doing it all by themselves. Like, if it feels hard, it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because it is really hard. And the things that have helped me the most is backing myself, but also really, I think, as either a solo parent or as someone who's having to parent alone a lot for whatever reasons, FIFO, partner works, husband, whoever works away a lot, you really need to probably more proactively and mindfully curate a village, maybe more so than someone who's got like 2 parents in the house with extended families around them, etc., etc. Like, if you are finding it hard, I think the biggest thing you can do is like mindfully build your parenting village and community. If you're feeling like you're pouring energy into a relationship and you're not getting the return, like if your cup's not feeling filled in return, obviously, like contextually, sometimes people just, they've got other stuff going on, but like prioritize relationships that fill you up in return as well. I've poured a lot of energy into relationships that didn't pour back into me. I've got to be really, and I would say to, these other parents, you have a finite amount of like energy and headspace. The most important thing in the world to me is that Maggie gets the best and the most of that. And obviously I want that for myself, and I need to look after myself for me, not just as a parent. Like, she's under 5. This is the time where they need so much of us, and it's been my priority to pour into her. You've only got so much of it. Be mindful of where you're putting your energy, essentially. Like, are you stressing about people coming over, so like obsessively cleaning your house when you should be having a nap or a rest or making some good food? Like, if people care about the bonsai state of your home, well, that's on them. I truly couldn't care less. Well, and I say that, but there have been times where I felt about it. I just think, build your village to the best of your ability, and prioritize where your energy is going. You'll be surprised who ends up, like, sometimes the people that you thought would be really supportive and amazing for you will let you down, and then sometimes other people in your life will step up and just be like the biggest, like, blessing, cup filling, like, people that you just like want to put a solid gold statue to them in your home because they've just helped so much in so many different ways. I guess,
It is so crazy. I had a friend, and through like a weird circumstance, we ended up like cutting paths.
That's
when
always
Freddie
hard. Friend breakups are the worst.
It was so hard. Freddie was about 6 or 7 months old, and at first I was devastated that I'd lost this friendship, and then I very quickly realized that was a friendship that I had been giving so much to and receiving nothing back from. And I suddenly realized I had all of this time and space and energy for myself and for Freddie and for other friendships. And I was like, man, I never even noticed. And now from that experience, I'm like so like careful with who I give my energy to and like really take stock of like that reciprocation. And I'm not like keeping tabs on friends, but you know, you like, there are the friends that like make the effort to pour back into you as you pour into them. And it's like a very like cyclical relationship. And it's so
symbiotic. We're going back to biology.
Yes. There you go, symbiotic relationship. And I feel like now I'm surrounded by only those friendships, and it has made such a difference.
Good.
So
like my
good.
circle's smaller, but it's so golden. You know, like I'm so grateful to like the people in my life. Your circle might get a bit smaller as a parent. Relationships will for sure change. But I guess just, appreciating and prioritizing the relationships that serve you. Like, and I mean, that might sound a bit callous, I guess, in a way, but
I know, and I feel like myself coming across that way of being like, cut people off. And I'm like, no, you don't need to cut them off, but like,
leave your
distance
husband.
yourself from them. Exactly. But you know, like you can create that distance and you can still check in and you can still respond to their messages. But when you can 100%. Feel them like pulling all of your energy out of you, just like put the boundary up. Oh, baby's crying. Sorry, I need to.
Yeah.
You know, like
if,
it's not
if you're
hard
spending more time worrying about the state of a friendship or a relationship than you are enjoying that person or whatever it is, then that's probably a sign that it's just like not for you. Maybe even just for a while or maybe forever. Who knows? But I think
if that notification pings and you already feel tired, just seeing their name pop up, it's probably a good one to reassess.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard.
I mean, we
so
could
hard.
talk till the cows come home, my friend.
We sure could. Okay, this is officially the end of this section of the podcast. So, Abby, thank you so much for joining us on Why Do You Parent Like That?
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone who's listened to me ramble and cry and swear and describe my little unhinged life.
It was a joy, but I'm going to ask Abby a secret sixth question, which will be for my paid subscribers on my Substack, of which Abby is one. So she's paying for her own answer right now, which I'm sure she will love. So if you want to hear more from Abby, go over to my Substack, become a paid subscriber. It costs less than a cup of coffee for a whole month worth. So it's like, you know. And I'm trying to give you content that's worth that cost. But I'm going to ask Abby. I'm excited.
I don't know what the question is.
I know. I realized I didn't send it to you, and I'm so sorry. So you're going into this cold, but you'll be fine.
Ooh, here we go.
Okay, here it is.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Why Do You Parent Like That? Why Do You Parent Like That is created by me, your gal, Abby Harrison. Huge love and snuggles to my gorgy nephew and niece, Thomas and Francis, for lending their voices to my jingle, as well as a massive thank you to the iHeartRadio Podcast Network team for giving this little pod a place to call home. Be sure to follow our socials to stay up to date with podcast happenings, as well as chaotic insights to my life. If you have a story that you reckon would be neat to share on the pod, flick me an email at whydoyouparentlikeThatpodcast@gmail.com. Love you! Say it back.
Why do you parent like